Welcome back to mindSHIFT, the podcast to help you shift your thinking so that you can access your natural gifts and talents that are already yours, so that you can live your best life starting today. You're just one mind shift away. My name's Robin. Until into my 40s, I was convinced I was allergic to avocado pear. I mean, I just couldn't eat this stuff, right? Don't offer it on a plate, on a dish, on a slice of bread or toast, or you name it. I see the stuff, I see the color, I see the texture, and I'm out of there. And a couple of years ago, a good 10, maybe 15 years ago, I did this deep blood test. I can't remember the exact name, so I won't stuff that name up. But we had this blood test done and looked at microscopic level, and the results there were so encouraging to me because it named a couple of food items that I should avoid, that my body naturally sees as toxic, as like, man, this ain't good for you. And one of those food substances, one of those, what the doc suggests that I stay away from is avocado pear. And that just makes sense to me, man. When I think of avo, when I try to eat the fruit, is it a fruit? That stuff, fruit stuff, man, didn't go down well. I did not enjoy it. And somehow I made a connection between the what it felt like in my mouth and the taste and the whole experience. And I had this belief that I was allergic to this stuff. There were 3 or 4 other items that the doc mentioned that I found I still do have a low tolerance for. So if I have them, man, I just don't feel good. Like within hours, I feel a dis-ease in my body, in my energy. But this story with avo is hilarious because I also like tacos. I also like tacos and some spicy food and then one day I have this bowl in front of me, right? This dish, and I've got this stuff and I'm dishing and I'm enjoying the sauce and I'm enjoying the food, the plate, the different stuff at the Mexican restaurant. And my friends, she looks at me, she's like, you know what that is, right? I'm like, no, it's just that stuff, you know? Like, dude, that's avo. That's avocado pear you're eating. I thought you're allergic to it. I'm like, oh my gosh. I don't have an answer, man. What do I say now? Because this I can eat, and I quite enjoy it, and I enjoy the whole meal. But this is that. So what I've come to learn since then is a concept called proprioception, which in my understanding is the ability for me to recognize and then understand the sensation I'm having in my physical body. So in a previous episode, we talked about the wind, the air moving through the room and the wind on my skin and my skin translating that into an experience. And in the same way, what I've come to learn is that particular fruit, that particular food stuff, what I was having I had a troubling relationship with was the texture. It's that soft, how it's made up, and in my mouth how that feels, and as I take and I eat that, the sensation just is really uncomfortable for me. So tactile, something about the way it feels. Now, as I think about it, there's other things in my world, other foodstuffs, other experiences that have a similar tactile, physical nature to them that I experience a similar discomfort or an uneasiness with. And what I've come to realize is that all those years, I was mistaking a food substance and a flavor with a tactile experience, a texture. So the texture of the food and the way that it felt in my mouth and the way that whole eating experience, I was unable to distinguish between what I was feeling physically and what I was experiencing from a taste and flavor and that kind of perspective. And because I couldn't tell the difference, I just melded the two into one. And because I had this discomfort and this dis-ease with this particular food, I wrote it off as I'm allergic to it. Every time I have this, I have these experiences and my body doesn't feel good. And then I feel ill, I feel dis-ease in my gut, in my stomach. So yeah, obviously my belief is true, right? That I'm allergic to this food. Until that evening, until that meal, and I was like, oh my gosh, here I am stuffing this stuff down my throat, and this stuff that I'm enjoying is that avo that I was quote unquote allergic to. And in that moment I was able to make that distinction. And this is what I want you to hear me say, is when I can see the difference in what I'm experiencing at a thinking perspective, as well as a emoting perspective, as well as a physiological proprioception, a physiological perspective, and I can slow the experience down, then the experience I can access a richer insight to that experience. And today I'm able to make the distinction between what I'm feeling at a physical level, the tactile, the textures of an experience, from the different other senses, so the taste and the smell and what I see and hear, and where something might be illicit, might bring about a dis-ease, an uncomfortable feeling for me from a tactile perspective, so the way it feels on my skin, that doesn't have to equal writing off everything else I experience in that moment. And when I'm able to do that, I can tease that moment out, and I can change how I think about what's going on in that moment. And as I'm able to make that shift, that mind shift, and add more words as I calibrate my experience and I measure what I'm going through and the meanings that I'm making to that experience itself shifts. My understanding of it, my experience of it, and the meanings that I make in that experience shifts. So what that could look like is inner relating. When I'm working with someone and I'm communicating with someone, perhaps we have a very different communication style. So someone might be much louder than you are, that speak quicker than you do, that speak what's the right word I'm looking for? They have a lot of charisma. Perhaps you're quieter. Perhaps you're a softer soul. And when I say softer, there's a slowness, there's a reflection to your thinking and a slowness to your speaking, and you like to take your time and gently get your message across. But when those two different types of communicators connect, or should I say collide, in communicating, then it makes sense to me that there's a strain, or you can experience a strain in the relating, right? That way can that fast, that quick, that dynamic, that loud, that lot of energy in that communicating can come across as abrasive, as aggressive. And it's easy to mistake what's been said for the feeling, the experience that it elicits, until you slow it down. And then you can kind of shift your mind about that. You can shift your thinking to recognize, okay, that's just quick speak. That's just words, lots of words said quickly in a short space of time. And perhaps they're coming from a place of excitement or conviction. So the words are not just coming quickly towards you, and they're also coming loud. There's lots of volume being invested. The energies that it's been shared from carries volume. And perhaps because there's energy and there's volume, they might also be delivered with gestures, with strong gestures, physical body movement, or hands, like I tend to use my hands if you haven't noticed. And those, when you're able to just separate those, so as I'm listening and I can hear loud and soft and quick and slow, and if I'm watching and I can see a soft, gentle movement and a dynamic, charismatic movement, and I allow myself to recognize how those different aspects create a different feeling in my own earth suit, in my body, I'm able to slow this whole conversation down, this connection down, and I'm able to almost access another layer of meaning. And with that different or additional layer, that whole experience can become richer. And I can choose alternative responses to what previously was just something that felt aggressive and abrasive and disrespectful and unkind. And perhaps now, as I understand these things and I understand, wait, I'm slow and gentle and they're not, that doesn't mean they're wrong or I'm wrong. It just means we're different. And I come back to avocado pear. Now I get to recognize that there's some meals that are offered to me. I get to partake in a dish that doesn't look familiar to me. And as I take the first few portions and I place them in my mouth, perhaps what's new is not necessarily the flavor, or what's uncomfortable, unfamiliar, what makes me feel uneasy in my body is not necessarily the flavor, perhaps it's the texture. And I can separate that and allow that to be for a moment and enjoy the meal long enough to experience a new flavor, a new spice, a different a different a bouquet, a different experience in the dish. And I wonder how that's landing for you as you become more aware of this physical, this proprioceptic, this physical awareness as you experience life through the physical body. And as you're experiencing that life, you're measuring what's going on for you, right? And you're able to now measure with even like smaller chunks, bite chunks of information, of data. And as you do that, you're able to paint a richer picture in the theater of your mind of what it is that's going on for you and the meanings that you make. And as those meanings become richer, you become richer in your experience, and you have more opportunities to have more meanings that you can calibrate from and that you can bring to this experience. And all that from Avocado Pear. I wonder what is your fruit of insight this week. My name's Robin. Until we chat again.